I visited my parents just before they moved out of my childhood home. And at night, we pulled out the VHS player and we had a family movie watch party. My grandmother, on my father's side, featured heavily. She had the same hairstyle my whole life. I don't know if she had the same hairstyle her whole life, I doubt it. But since at least the 1980s, she'd had the same blonde updo during summers in Syracuse and winters in Royal Palm Beach. Every time my grandmother appeared, she was like a clone of herself. Big sunglasses, a house dress, a toothy grin. All that's missing are the cigarettes, my dad said, and we all had a laugh. My grandmother smoked several packs a day, so much that it's remarkable that cancer of the liver and not the lungs got her in the end. But most of our videos and pictures were taken indoors, and by the time I was growing up, she'd usually go outside to take a smoke. In the videos, I could hear the habit and the rasp of her laughter, but otherwise, it was a part of her that I couldn't conjure. My dad reminded me of a scene at dinner time near the very end. Grandma holding her cigarette so politely low that the smoke started to billow out from beneath the table. But all those photographic edges are faded. I mostly recall how we shared a love of giraffes and the way the snow fell on my bright jacket the April we buried her, 26 years ago tonight. The way our memories decompose and go fuzzy at the edges is a part of the human experience. Cognitive neuroscientists have studied the brain and its method of sorting memories, some holding sharp contrast and vivid detail, the rest vulnerable to loss, to reimagining. For the most part, we accept this decay as a natural side effect of time passing. But there are some things that we've sworn we will never forget, parts of history that are so important, it's worth fighting to protect every pixel. I do remember when I first encountered a revolutionary project, one that utterly changed the way I think about memory, through Stephen Smith, who is a brilliant scholar on the topic of genocide and who is also a dear friend to this community. Sitting in the room with a Shoah survivor, at first it seemed I was watching any other Holocaust testimony. Aaron Elster sat in a wooden chair, his white hair coiffed neatly. He was gentle, and he was calm, even as he toured us through the most agonizing years of his life. Hidden in the attic of a Polish family, Aaron couldn't leave his hiding place until the very end of the war. It was a terrible existence, he said, not being able to wash, to brush your teeth. He said this as matter-of-factly as my own American-born grandfather would talk about walking uphill both ways to and from school. Aaron had the confident, collected presence that's characteristic of so many survivors. But the extraordinary innovation at work was that Aaron wasn't present at all as he told his story. He was a construct, a Pepper's ghost illusion, kind of an apparition. Aaron Elster was preserved in hologram, projected onto a stage. Aaron's story was recorded with groundbreaking technology by the USC Shoah Foundation's Dimensions in Testimony project. The sophisticated capture of the survivor's countenance with its chills inducing intensity, had one simple but profound goal: to immortalize the experience of hearing a Shoah survivor tell their story firsthand. The effect was transcendent, an utterly credible conveyance of brutal history through utterly incredible means. Soon in our lifetimes, we will see the last of the living Shoah survivors pass away. In the face of that generational extinction, Dimensions and Testimony is a gift. It's a gift to the witnesses to come, guaranteeing that they and we will never forget the sound of a survivor recounting their tale firsthand. And the holographic production is also a gift to the survivors, promising that they will hold the microphone and have the spotlight well after they're gone. This ties into the ancient notion that righteous people psycho-spiritually outlive themselves. The Babylonian Talmud in Brachot frames this idea with an ecclesiastical verse. Ki hachayim yodeim sheyamutu. The living know they will die. Elu tzadikim shebemitatan nikreu chayim. And the Talmud tells us, the righteous know that in their death, they will be spoken of, talked about, as though they are still alive. And now, through the miracle of technology our rabbinic predecessors could not have imagined, the righteous will be given voice even in their death. Theirs are the legacies that linger, personal Torah, transcends timelines. Aaron, a Shoah survivor whose narrative might otherwise have been a mere footnote in a museum display, etched on a single stone amid others in a cemetery. Now it exists as an infinitely interactive character, a font of self-referential knowledge that will quench curiosity for generations, perpetually unadulterated. The catalog of Dimensions and Testimony spells a new chapter in the evolution of remembrance. The holographic technology lets us forever recall the way someone's nose crinkled when she laughed, or how he would shift rhythmically in his seat. It's the very thing I hear some of you searching for the words to describe when you come to Minyan, say Kaddish, and you remind us whom you're remembering that night. You're foraging for the language that would properly convey the way someone's eyes lit up at the mention of her favorite opera, how he smiled with a spoonful of his favorite chocolate pudding, the peculiar, comforting way they would sway at the piano for hours, filling the home with gentle vibrations on a Sunday night. Without technological intervention, our capacity for recall, it's limited against a backdrop of infinite things, all of which are worth remembering. We are especially dialed into that sacred struggle on days like Yizkor, when it sometimes feels as though we are the life support, sustaining all that was and is our loved ones, as if they will hover and remain as long as we breathe into the hollow of their souls again and again, afraid perhaps that if we were to stop to catch our breath, the specter of their existence might fade. But there's such joyful, sweet fulfillment in all of that sifting and the sorting through stories. It's a kind of miraculous invigoration that comes from time traveling through our memories for the sake of working the bellows and breathing life into the fire of memory. Once I sat with a family for nearly 5 hours doing an intake. It was a life worth 5 hours of intake. And I was learning all about the life of the deceased, watching them blow the dust off of old memories, reanimating their mother's youth and their own. It was a large family with 4 or 5 adult children who were eager to eulogize their mother. On the day of the funeral, the oldest daughter opened her eulogy with the following joke. Our mom made the most delicious cookouts that the neighbors would ask her to autograph her burgers. And then the middle son came up and spoke next, and he added this. Mom tried hard in the kitchen, but her spaghetti was so overcooked, it applied for retirement benefits. It's impossible to reconcile the way we remember someone's cooking, the way we saw someone differently than they were seen by everyone else. And it would be a fool's errand to think we could understand the way someone else experienced our loved one. When you carry someone around in your bones, in your heart, in your soul, they are bound to get as affectionately creased and wrinkled as a photograph that lives in the fold of a wallet. The memory becomes a character unto itself. When you've scooped up all that you can carry of a person, you are bound to lose some stuff that spills over the edges, like how he closed his eyes when he finally remembered the song and sang it once more. Like how your grandmother's voice sounded when she sang you happy birthday over the phone, or how her fingers moved as she knit the purple afghan that sat at the end of your bed. Dr. Susanna Heschel, the only child of renowned philosopher Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, writes prolifically about the gap between the way that she remembers her father and the way the rest of the world chooses to remember him. Susanna became a scholar in her own right, a warrior for justice, walking in her father's footsteps and thereby praying with her legs. When Susanna and her husband got married, they held a ceremony that deliberately echoed a celebration in Poland from a previous generation. Susanna carried a book from the Apter Rav in lieu of a bouquet, a sacred object connecting her to the Hasidic dynasty to which she and all Heschels trace their roots. The groom wore Dr. Abraham Joshua Heschel's black hat. This intimate, stereoscopic recreation of the way things once were opened the door to members of her family who would not have attended a Reform wedding and who therefore made a point of being there. Susanna said that people who write about her father tend to downplay or erase his closeness to their Hasidic family. It's convenient for scholars to ignore the way in which people's families and upbringings influence their thinking. Susanna said, people are enmeshed in their families. You carry your parents with you in your mind, in your dreams, in your heart, in your feelings, and in your day-to-day living. Susanna's words evoke imagery from the Babylonian Talmud and Tractate Eruvin, that we are like a limb extending from our loved ones, a physical offshoot from the last generation. The Gemara asks, what happens when a parent passes away on Shabbat? Do we treat the inheriting child as a separate entity who couldn't have made any vows or nullifications about the property before Shabbat, before they owned the property? Or do we consider the child to be Yoresh Karei Davuhu, like his father's leg, suddenly and involuntarily laden with all the rights and obligations their father had before death, now a part of them, they a part of the child? In their grief, the child now must shuffle ahead, bidden to move forward because time is linear, and life demands that we keep walking, keep moving, even when the world falls apart around us. Susanna, daughter of Abraham Joshua, walking through the world with an unbreakable, umbilical attachment to the beauty of Chassidut, to the wisdom of her father, retelling his life as she remembers it, weaving a legacy of righteousness. This is what philosopher Martin Buber called a factual connection between generations, wherein children and grandchildren carry the memory of their ancestors in their bones. The memory that we carry in our bones is free of preservatives. It is alive, malleable, and impressionable. It is perennial, dying and then blossoming again in a new season on fresh ground. Legacies are manufactured by humans, so they are as fallible, imperfect, and dynamic as we are. Inevitably, sometimes with great purpose and sometimes with regret, our bones shake out a change in the story. We walk through the world accepting that we will not remember everyone and everything forever. We walk through our tears, mourning the sounds and smells that we'll never recapture. And as we walk, we also heal, as we forget and let go of what we can hardly remember anyway. The first time I heard about the immersive technology being used to capture Holocaust survivors, I pictured myself visiting my family at their graves many decades from now, and with a press of a button, interfacing with an AI recreation of a person whom I once knew. I wondered, would I thrill to see the faces of my parents? Would the avatar version of my father ask me if I'd ever gotten around to repainting the wall in the bathroom where we had to pull out the plumbing? And I imagine my own great-great-grandchildren visiting me, discovering and rediscovering my anxieties and finding out for themselves that once you get me talking about a jazz song, there is no off switch. It would be so real, so gritty, holistic, multidimensional, and I imagine it would be unsettling. There would be no forgetting, no natural erosion of arguments, no slow effacement of the parts of me that are tough as nails. There I would be, the same version of myself in perpetuity, detached from the evolution of the people and the worlds I'd built in my lifetime, not rattling around in my descendants' bones as I should, but rather stuck in the too perfect neural pathways of a machine. Many of the cornerstone concepts in Rabbinic Judaism celebrate the ever-changing nature of the self and of the world. God is mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh bereshit, renewing the acts of creation every day. And there's the fact that we're meant to strive for tshuva, to repair the brokenness that resulted from choices we regret. And time that's renewed at Rosh Chodesh and all 4 new years. The memories of those we've lost have seeped into our marrow, filled the spaces between our joints, and the reminiscences of our loved ones are renewed every day, along with our souls and our cells. When the darkness of the shadow of death falls across our path, the psalmist reminds us, Gam ki elech begeit salmavet. Even as I am in the depths of the darkness of death's shadow, I walk. Elech. I am the limbs of my ancestors, and there is no standing still. My bones hold your imperfect memories imperfectly. Lo irara ki ata imadi. And I don't fear the bad things in life because you are with me. The plain read of that text is, of course, faith in the calm that comes from walking with God. But this verse from the 23rd Psalm could just as easily read that I am relieved of fear, ki ata imadi, because you are with me. You, who no longer walk the earth, you walk with me. As I stretch, your memories grow. As I age, parts of you fade. But I keep the precious ones. And I'll swear by the way you said my name, even if I am the only one who remembers it that way. The secret that we pinky swore on, that too, lives in my bones. You'll forgive me when I sing a new tune at the Seder for V'hisha Amda. I don't think you would have liked it very much, but you would have said that you'd listen to me sing anything. You won't mind, I'm sure, that I've edited the cigarettes out of the frame. And you'll forgive me when a new memory takes root where I once tucked away your address and your favorite flavor of ice cream. You'll forgive me if I say that I'd rather not meet you again, not the version of you that they bottled and encoded too perfectly. It's too stuck to carry with me as I walk, because I have no other choice. I've got miles to go, and I'm taking all that remains of you with me, every wrinkle and every tear. I'll pray with my legs, so you'll be praying with me. The shadow of death will return, and I won't fear, because, well, I won't be alone.